Well, hello everyone. I'd like to welcome you to another GingerGM video. It's been a long time since I've done a video, so I apologise for that. So what we're going to look at is a game I had against Mr. Fire on the board himself, Alexei Shirov. So a real honour to play Shirov. I played this in round 10 at the 4NCL. Alexei was playing for wood green and I had the black pieces. I've actually previously played Shirov on two other occasions, both in the English League, can you believe it or not. In the first game I played the Najdorf variation of the Sicilian, which I've had black in every single game, but I got a very good position in the Najdorf. I've since written a book on that and produced a DVD for GingerGM. That was very interesting. Actually, I should never have lost the game. I was clearly better than I was equal, but I did lose that game. In the second game, I had a classical Dutch against Shirov, and again, I was doing very well in that game. I think I was clearly better again. Yet again, I lost that game. And in this game, I think it was quite balanced. I don't think I can claim ever to be better in this game. Shirov played his typical style. He's a real sort of great player to watch, and he's one of my favourite players of all time. He's so good at calculating. He's such an aggressive player. He just keeps coming at you. He keeps coming forwards. So it's really exciting to play Shirov because he is really a hero of mine. And you know you're going to get an interesting game when facing him. But it was extremely interesting, so I thought we'd do a quick video on it for GingerGM and YouTube. So I hope you enjoyed the video. I'm going to show you my thoughts during the game and basically just show you how well Shirov played. So it was a lot of fun. Okay, so I'm black, and the game started e4. So Shirov has played the d4 against me before, but e4, and now I played the Sicilian. I basically wanted to get a sharp game against Shirov because, like I mentioned before, it's so fun playing one of the most aggressive and attacking players in the world that I think it would be a pity to waste the chance of getting some double-edged position. There's no point playing some Berlin defence against Shirov. I mean, okay, you might have a better chance if you do that, but you're playing one of the best attackers of all time, so you might as well enjoy the game, try to get into an interesting position where I can get some chances as well. And now d6 was played, d4, so you wouldn't expect Shirov to play anything else except for the open Sicilian. And now knight to f6, knight to c3, and here I played for the second time in my life the Najdorf variation with a6. Now previously I have played g6 against Shirov, and after bishop to e3 I went a6 there, which is the Najdorf variation. I got a very good position there. To be honest, I don't really know anything about the Najdorf. It was kind of a bit of a bluff. You have to remember that this is the 4NCL, and unfortunately the night before this game, myself and my girlfriend got rather carried away in the bar, and I think we sort of stayed in the bar until about 3-4 o'clock. This game starting at 1 o'clock the next day, I kind of woke up with about 50 minutes to spare and rather a state of ill health, should I say. So I think there was no time to prepare, and I thought, well, look, I'm playing Shirov, let's just play the Najdorf. I don't know much about it. Obviously I've seen some games in the Najdorf before. I was hoping he didn't play the main line with bishop to g5 here, because that would have really got me in serious trouble quite early on. But I thought, well, I'm playing Shirov, let's just play the Najdorf and let's try to enjoy the game. So I thought that was probably the best way to approach this game. So a6, bishop to e3. So my opponent picks one of the sharpest variations. This is the English attack, a very interesting line. And basically white intends to set up with like f3, queen d2, g4, and castles kingside. Queenside. On the other hand, when he does castle queenside, this is the normal plan for white. I'm going to try to go e6, bishop e7, b5, castles kingside, and attack on the queenside. So he's going to attack my king, I'm going to attack his king. It's going to be a real interesting game. And the only other time really I've played this a6, I had it against an international master now, David Augustin. And indeed he castled queenside, and it was a very exciting game. I managed to win that game. I've had it by transposition against two other players. So far I've got 100%, 3 out of 3 in a Najdorf, and they've all played bishop to e3 against me. So I continue my plan. I just played e6. Of course there's a number of other opening options here, but e6 is a move favoured by some Bulgarian players, mainly Cheparinov and Topolov, and it's a very flexible system, and it's a very interesting system, and it keeps a lot of options available. As you'll see a bit later on, it's similar to the Najdorf, except I have a pawn on e6 rather than g6. In the Najdorf, you'd have the same position, but your pawn would be on g6. So it's very flexible. Now, I expected, I was a bit upset when my opponent played his next move. I didn't really do any prep, so I should have really expected his last move, because I believe he used it to beat Anand in 1995 in a brilliant game. I'm more used to the setup with f3, when the game against Eggleston continues something like b5, queen d2, bishop b7, g4. And again, opposite side castling, very exciting positions you get, which I'm very comfortable playing, and I thought this would be a great way to try to get some attacking chances against Shirov. Well, to be honest, you're always going to get attacking chances against Alexei because he's such an exciting player, but you're also in danger of getting just mated very quickly. So it's a very double-edged thing. But this is precisely the kind of position I wanted, where I'm going to enjoy the game. I'm playing one of my favourite players of all time. I just want to enjoy playing and have the opportunity to play such a great player and to get a tactical game going. So this would have been exactly what I wanted. But instead, bishop to e2 was played. And now, well, I didn't really know the setup so well. I just thought I'd castle kingside. He played f4. And now I was trying to tempt him into playing his next move, whether this is foolhardy or not, because after I do castle kingside, I don't really know the setups. I don't really know the theory or the positions if he had a castle kingside. I think, again, in a better move for me, really, is not to commit my king to the kingside straight away. Maybe play b5 instead. But I was kind of hoping he would play g4 here, because then we get a very double-edged game. My plan was to react with b5. There were some complications here which I had to calculate already. I mean, my opponent just played g5, but I had to get ready for especially the move bishop to f3 when I was planning to play the next idea. Bishop to b7, and if e5, knight takes g4. And this is my plan. And I calculated a variation which went bishop takes b7, knight takes e3. So at the moment my opponent is doing quite well, but after queen d3 I was now going to take on e5. If my opponent recaptures an e5, I have a nice trick here. I can go queen takes d4. And the point being, after queen takes d4, knight takes c2 check, the king moves, knight takes queen, my opponent captures on a8, knight d7, this is a key moment. I'm exchanged down at the moment, but I have a lot of pawns, and after some continuation like rook to d1, rook takes a8, rook takes d4, knight takes e5, I have a very good position because I have so many pawns for exchange. So I had to calculate lines like this, but we won't dwell too long on this. Let's get to the critical stage later on. So knight fd7, my opponent stops b4. I develop with bishop to b7, has to be the right way to continue. My opponent now played the one move I was concerned about. He played rook to g1, and the idea here is just to go f5, f6, and now his pawn on g5 is defended by his bishop and his rook. So this is one plan, and he spent a lot of time thinking about this move, so it gave me time to prepare my next idea. Knight to c6, and I had a counter-attacking idea in mind here. Of course, my opponent has to go f5 here, otherwise now all my pieces are developed and I'm ready to break in the centre with e5, d5, something like this. So my opponent plays f5, and now knight takes d4 was my plan. If my opponent goes bishop takes d4, which I thought he might actually play, I was going to now take on g5 because he's lost control of this pawn. But now I expected him to go bishop takes g7, king takes g7, and something like queen to d2. And this is a very complicated position, but I thought I was probably okay here after king to h8, because my knight has this typically good Sicilian square on e5, and in the Sicilian this is one square you want to gain control of for your knight, and then often you get good counterplay. Instead my opponent played queen takes d4, and I had prepared against this the counter break d5. To be honest, around here, I mean, I was a bit worried. Obviously, you're playing Shirov, and the guy starts throwing his pawns at your king, and he gets his pawns at g5, and his other pawns to f5. And, you know, Shirov's known for his attacking ability, so it's hard not to be a little bit afraid here. But also I thought, well, I've got d5, I'm getting some counterplay here, so this is interesting. My opponent now took on e6, a move I didn't consider too much. Okay, I should go bishop to c5 here, and this would have led to equal position, I believe. Instead, I took on e6 first, and I was overestimating my attacking chances here. I saw the following continuation. E takes d5, bishop to c5, so my opponent's king is still stuck in the centre here. Queen to d2, and now queen to b6. The point behind my play. He has to do something with bishop on e3, so he took on c5, and now knight takes c5. And my threat here is knight to d3 check, so x-raying his rook on g1. So he has to castle. And instinctively, when I went into this variation, I thought I should be fine here because we're opposite side castling, and I thought I'd have moves like b4 coming up, rook to c8, and be able to launch some attack against his king. But when I got to this position, I had a very long think here, and I realised that I'd actually overestimated my position. B4 just doesn't work here because I need one more tempo. If I had my rook on b8 here, then I would probably have a good attack. But if I go b4 straight away, he captures, queen takes, and now rook g4 would be a very good defensive move. And this kicks my queen away to a much worse square. And this is not scary for him. I just don't have enough pieces attacking. I need this bishop on b7 over on g6 here, something like that. It just gets in the way on b7 square. Another idea I was thinking about was a5, with the idea of going b4 and trying to capture with a pawn on a5. But the problem with this move is it leaves my b5 pawn undefended, and I couldn't find a good continuation after bishop takes b5. So instead I just went for the most sensible rook on a to d8, and this aims just to win my pawn on d5 back. And I saw the following sacrificial idea for me, and I thought, well, it's probably not entirely sound, but it might give me some chances to attack. My opponent played the best move, b4. If he doesn't play b4, I'm just going to simply recapture on d5 with a good position. Now I sacked a piece. Bishop takes d5. My opponent took on c5. He has a number of moves here, but he played the most sensible. He took on d5. Rook takes d5. And now, because if he goes something like queen b4, queen to e3 check would be very strong, he has to go bishop to d3. And okay, I did think this sacrifice was slightly dubious, but I thought, well, I get two pawns, his king is quite weak, I have chances to maybe bring one of my rooks around to the b file, and it has some pros. It's obviously not sound, but the way my opponent played was quite phenomenal here. And it just brilliant response from him. He went king to b1, I went rook to c8, and you can see my idea is to bring my rook around to b4. Queen to e1, this took me by surprise. I now went queen to d6. Again, I still had the plan at some point of trying to get one of my rooks into the game. Either rook to d4 to b4, or at some point this rook can come into c3 or to c4. And if I get a couple of moves in, it's very hard. It'd be very hard for him to defend. Now my opponent here completely shot me with the thunderbolt. Bishop takes h7 check. Typical Shirov. And I don't know how many other players in the world would have played this move. White probably has a very good position just by trying to keep things solid. But instead, my opponent, who loves the initiative so much, went for this sacrificial attack on h7. And this was, I think it's just an amazing idea. And I'll be honest, it totally took me by surprise. And we'll just have a look at this. What his point is, I have to take this piece. And now he took on d5. And he went g6 check, have to retreat, and now queen to h4. And rather than defend some suspicious attack that I had, my opponent instead wants to go on the attack. And this is exactly what happened. To be honest, we're both in serious time trouble here, and I thought I saw a line which was drawing by perpetual, so I went for it. But my opponent had seen that a little bit further. This is one of the things about Shirov's play. He's just an amazing calculator, amazing attacker. He can calculate so precisely and so well. He's just in a league of himself. I mean, he's beaten most of the best players in the world by using his amazing calculational skills. So he's quite phenomenal. And this attack, which he didn't need to start, just shows us. And we get a very double-edged position where he's just calculated that little bit further ahead. So rook to c4 was played, and now my opponent dived in with queen to h7 check. I run away. I could see my king could run away to the queen side, and I thought, well, you know, his king also on b1 is very weak. So very double-edged position. We're both just going for it against each other's kings. No messing about here. And this is the way to play when you've cast on opposite side of the board. Just throw everything at your opponent's king. Now we had queen h8 check. He chased my king here. Queen f8, king c7, and now g7 was his idea. I played, now my intention, queen to d4. And this is where I thought I might be drawing, but I still didn't see that it wasn't a draw. He went king e7, king to b6. And I thought I had perpetual here. One line I did see in the game is that if he took on e6 check, I could go king to a5. If he queens, 2 queens, but it's actually a draw. So I go rook b4 check. He can't run away with his king because he'll be in serious trouble then. He has to try to block, and now just rook takes b3. And due to the threat to his rook on g1, after here, queen to d3 would lead to a draw. My opponent instead had just calculated a little bit further. g8, 2 queens on the board. Now I get a little bit of an attack going. Rook to b4 check. My opponent has to capture this. If he goes king to c1, it's mate. After queen e3 and rook b1. My opponent takes the queen, sacrificing 1 queen. And now, originally, I thought this was a draw. I thought I've got a draw against Shirov. Great, I'm happy with that. King d1, queen f3 check, king d2, queen f2 check. I thought, hello, this is looking good. Originally I calculate king d3, queen f3, etc. a draw. But after queen f2, my opponent suddenly played king to c3, and it dawned on me here in this position that he'd calculated so precisely, going back something like 10 moves, and he calculated that I was losing here. And the game, well, I run out of checks. Let's see how. He goes to b2, only got some spite checks here, and now c3. And he'd worked out all this combination here, quite phenomenal. King c2, queen a2 check, king c1, and slowly you can see my queen is getting further and further away from his king. I'm going to run out of checks. He's a whole rook up, so I resigned in this position. Still, a very fun game to play. I mean, I was the opening was a lot of fun. It was one of my first times on Najdorf, so I'll be giving this a go again, I think. Very exciting around this stage. We're both going for it. So I thought this d5 counter break I had here gave me very good attacking chances. But then later on in the game, my opponent played this amazing bishop takes h7 check here, which he probably didn't need to play, but it led to a beautiful win. But I think a very exciting game, typical play from Shirov, demonstrating why he's one of my favourite players, and it was quite a pleasure to play him. Maybe one day I can get a draw against him or even beat him, but it wasn't to happen that time. Well, cheers for now. Hopefully I'll have some more videos with you very shortly.